It's Halloween night 2012, and ghosts and ghouls of all ages prowl the dark streets of West Hollywood. Monsters of every shape and size are playing tricks and looking for treats, including adults.
It's a great time for adults to not take themselves too seriously and have a little fun.
This Halloween, 42-year-old Eric Poltorak decides to dress up as a gangster. He's on his way to the popular Halloween Carnival in West Hollywood with his close friends. But the true horror is about to unfold. While Eric celebrates the evening, others have decided to instill pure evil. Returning from the party, Eric's had a great evening with his buddies. But as he heads towards his front door, any memories of the great night disappear from his thoughts and are replaced by the realization he has dark and twisted enemies.
He was shot in the back of the head in his own front door entranceway.
Eric's a well-liked man who's brutally gunned down with no explanation. The masks will have to come off for the horrifying reason behind this Halloween murder to be revealed. Beverly Grove is one of the 10 most popular neighborhoods in Los Angeles.
It's centered around an outdoor shopping mall called The Grove, a premier destination that borders West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. Tourists, locals, and celebrities flock there.
Beverly Grove is home to some of the most notable restaurants and some of LA's most exclusive hotels. It's also home to a large television studio.
This is pure Hollywood, the place people of all kinds are drawn to where they believe their wildest dreams can come true. Some of those star-studded dreams seem out there to regular folk like Eric Poltorak.
Eric's a registered financial advisor who begins his career in 1996. Eric passes many high-level exams and works at 5 firms before ending up in Santa Monica, California.
The glitz and glamour of Hollywood doesn't excite Eric.
Eric's not into shopping or celebrities.
Eric has his own interests that aren't conventional, and it starts at a young age.
In his youth, Eric studies the Bible in Hebrew and has a fascination with archaic mysteries.
He later discovers best-selling author Zecharia Sitchin, who specializes in comparative studies of the ancient world.
Zecharia Sitchin is a researcher, and his books use a combination of archaeology, ancient texts, and the Bible with the most recent scientific discoveries to retell the prehistory and history of mankind on planet Earth.
Sitchin explains the origin of human remains through ancient astronauts from space. His theories resonate with Eric, and by 1997, Eric is the webmaster of the official website of the Zecharia Sitchin.
Eric travels and studies with Sitchin. He also goes into business.
Poltorak is the executive vice president of an online role-play fashion company that he runs out of his home.
The LA Times describe his company as a sex clothing company, but in the cosplay world, it's much more than that. Eric's business becomes very popular.
Eric is a real go-getter. His many varied enterprises offer him an interesting and enjoyable lifestyle.
By May 17th, 2011, Eric Poltorak is no longer a registered financial professional. He's a writer.
It seems his time spent traveling and studying with Zecharia Sitchin has inspired Eric.
Poltorak lectures about extraterrestrial gods. He works with his mentor trying to prove Sumerian remains had extraterrestrial DNA. To Eric Poltorak, there is no doubt alien civilizations have interacted with early humans.
Eric successfully transitions into a serious writer and scholar. Even if his subject matter is odd to some, he finds an enthusiastic audience and his popularity grows.
Poltorak appears several times on Coast to Coast AM, a nationally syndicated radio show heard by nearly 3 million listeners each week.
Although some would call what he's talking about pseudoscience, Eric Poltorak is regarded as an expert in his field. Millions of people want to hear what he thinks.
Alien civilizations aside, Eric Poltorak's true passion is much more down to earth. His main focus is to be a loving dad. Eric's first marriage doesn't work out, but he and his ex share custody of their autistic daughter.
Eric adores being a father and tries to spend every possible moment with his little girl.
He was known as a loving and doting father for his 9-year-old daughter.
They share a love of science and are always doing stuff together. Despite being admired by millions around the world, Eric's daughter is his biggest fan.
On August 13th, 2011, Eric Poltorak is alone at home working when there's a knock at the door.
Standing outside are two men who tell Eric that they need to serve him with a legal document. He invites them in to discuss the matter, but once inside, things go rapidly wrong.
The so-called legal documents turn out to be fake. One of the men pulls out a gun, points it at Poltorak, and demands money.
Eric is brutally pistol whipped and tied up. The intruders ransack the house and clean out the valuables. As they run off with their haul, Eric is finally able to call 911 for help.
Bloodied and bound, a terrified Eric recounts the attack to the dispatcher.
Eric Poltorak survives the home invasion and is level-headed enough to tell the operator he doesn't know the perpetrators, but believes he could recognize them if he sees them again.
Although he keeps his wits to him, this loving father, scholar, and thinker will be forever changed in more ways than he can imagine.
Investigators document the crime scene. They take photographs and physical measurements.
Officers also log stolen goods: Eric's computer, 2 phones, a camera, and $600 in cash.
The most valuable item these men have taken, though, is Eric Poltorak's peace of mind. It's something he'll never get back.
Eric has dedicated his life to big ideas, but nothing will make a person feel smaller than having their safety ripped from them.
There are no security cameras in or around Eric's house.
Investigators do locate the fake documents the attackers used to con their way in the door. With possible DNA on them, they're sent for forensic examination.
Eric Poltorak's life changes. He goes from carefree to constantly paranoid and full of fear. He is terrified that if he's robbed once, he'll be robbed again.
Eric has a daughter to take care of. He's grateful she wasn't home when the initial attack happened and was spared the trauma. But what if they come back?
Eric becomes intent on being proactive. He fortifies his home with security cameras. Can't stop thinking about the people who did this to him.
Meanwhile, there's progress by police.
Fingerprints taken from the fake documents belong to a man named Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas was a felon involved in the home invasion robbery of Eric Poltorak.
Because Michael Thomas is a known felon, police are able to quickly locate him and bring him in.
Thomas is put in a lineup for Poltorak to examine.
It's incredibly stressful facing a police lineup. Not only can it be difficult to correctly remember and identify an attacker, but Eric now has to face the man who assaulted him and stole his sense of security and peace. But he manages to keep his cool, and when he locks eyes on him, Eric knows.
Police have their man. In August 2012, Michael Thomas, who was on probation at the time of the invasion at Eric Poltorak's home, is charged in the robbery. The second assailant isn't found. With Michael Thomas in custody, Eric can feel some measure of safety again. He moves on with his life and tries to push forward in a positive way.
Paranoia does linger to some degree. What happened to Eric that night is the kind of thing you'd never entirely get over. Even if he wants to forget it, he'll have to relive it again in court.
Eric's asked to testify against the perpetrator, Michael Thomas.
It's a difficult but necessary step to make sure a man who is a menace to society is put away for a long time.
It's an opportunity for Eric to take his power back and to make sure that the man who robbed and assaulted him is held accountable. But that doesn't make it any less terrifying.
Eric will testify at the pre-trial hearing scheduled for December 2nd, 2012. It's about a year after the initial home invasion incident. With Michael Thomas safely behind bars, Eric Poltorak has every reason to be feeling better. He decides to go out with friends to a Halloween carnival in West Hollywood.
Eric's looking forward to the night out. It'll be fun, especially since he's dressed like a 1920s gangster. These West Hollywood parties are notoriously wild. Eric is surrounded by people carousing and the mood is infectious. He has so much fun, he invites friends back to his home to keep the party going.
It's about 2 a.m. on November 1st, and Eric and his friends have finally wound down the party. He walks them to their car.
Eric's had an amazing night, but now he's ready to wind down. He's even still dressed in his 1920s gangster costume.
He says goodnight and heads back to his front door when suddenly someone approaches and shoots Eric several times at point-blank range.
For a second time, Eric has been attacked at his home, but this time, he won't be calling 911.
In 2011, Eric Poltorak is traumatized by a brutal home invasion and robbery. About a year later, with the perpetrator in jail, Eric is on the slow road to recovery. On Halloween night 2012, the 42-year-old goes out with friends to raise his spirits at a Halloween carnival. After he returns, Eric is attacked again. This time, there's no recovering. Eric is shot several times and is dead. Around 11 a.m., the morning after Halloween, one of Eric's work colleagues is worried that she can't get a hold of him. She decides to drop by his house and check in. When she arrives, she discovers Eric Poltorak dead at his front door.
She calls 911 and tells them Eric is lying on the ground, cold dead and covered in blood. After receiving Eric's co-worker's panicked 911 call, police rush to his house to search for the killer, or killers, or even any other victims. The place is clean.
Police immediately take a statement from Eric's colleague who found his bloody body.
Eric Poltorak's recent terrifying home invasion is front and center in his co-worker's mind. She recounts his fear about identifying the perpetrator, Michael Thomas, and testifying against him in court.
It's all she can think of. She knows Eric was anxious about the trial, but also, Eric has no enemies. He's well liked. She's absolutely convinced that Michael Thomas must have killed Eric.
Poltorak had the moral courage to stand up against a very dangerous criminal in court, but that doesn't mean he did so lightly. He felt the inherent danger in the act.
Eric's attacker assaulted him and pistol whipped him. He knows where Eric lives. He knows his identity. It's a terrifying reality to testify against a violent offender who might seek revenge.
With Michael Thomas behind bars and Eric's body being discovered by his work associate, question becomes, who killed Eric?
His coworker makes the connection that these two extremely violent crimes that happened to Eric, a normal, non-violent citizen, must be related. Who else would want Eric dead but the man he has to testify against?
When police look into the past crime involving Eric, a crucial connecting piece just isn't matching up. But that doesn't stop detectives from looking further into various different avenues for information.
Michael Thomas sits behind bars, awaiting a pre-trial that Eric was scheduled to testify at.
There is no possible way that Michael Thomas can be the triggerman.
Knowing Michael Thomas has been cleared as the gunman means the killer is still out there.
Meanwhile, forensics examine the murder scene and estimate that Eric Poltorak has been dead for 10 hours or more by the time of his discovery. He sustained multiple gunshots at close range from behind. Soot and stippling are observed, but no shell casings are located.
Stippling is caused by unburned gunpowder striking the skin. The presence of stippling indicates that a gun was fired from very close range.
Neighbors tell officers they do hear what could be gunshots in the early hours of November 1st morning, but attribute the sounds to a wild Halloween party.
Inside Eric's home, the untouched appearance is significant. There's nothing amiss or stolen, no signs of a robbery, just an execution in the front yard. For police, it feels personal.
Since the previous home invasion a year earlier, Eric Poltorak had installed a video surveillance system for protection.
It's a huge lead for investigators. Police realize the security camera points directly at the front door. Eric Poltorak's persistent fears of being attacked may pay off, and in a twisted way, by leading officers to his own killer.
The black and white video clearly shows the front of Eric's house at the time of the murder.
But unfortunately, the video has an eerie twist.
It's 2 a.m. on November 1st. On the video, Eric walks outside with two friends to see them safely to their cars. He appears to feel the chill of the night air, then hurries back towards his front door.
Eric disappears on the video, but seconds later, a person in a Halloween mask and robe bursts out from a nearby rose bush with a shotgun raised. He pursues Eric and shoots.
The blast can be seen by the video, but not the impact on Eric.
Whoever kills Eric is covered head to toe with a Halloween costume. It could be literally anyone on this All Hallows Eve.
It's a Halloween mask and robe, the very common costume someone buys last minute because they didn't have the time or energy to think of something better. It's also sold at multiple stores, and due to the time of year, it's also commonly purchased.
Police see the shooter has a very large frame. That's all the information they get. With no suspects, no leads, and no easy answers, the hope of finding Eric's killer quickly begins to dwindle.
An autopsy confirms that 42-year-old victim Eric Poltorak's cause of death is a 12-gauge shotgun bullet to the back of the head. Eric is killed with double-aught buckshot, the most well-known shotgun ammo used for hunting deer and large game.
Understanding how Eric was murdered has been uncovered, but understanding why remains a mystery. After Eric Poltorak is shot and killed at point-blank range on his own doorstep, detectives struggle to find the killer and a reasonable motive. The repercussions of this horrific murder ripple out, and Poltorak's autistic daughter is deeply traumatized by her father's slaying.
She's only 9 years old and needs her father because they're close companions. The killer has robbed her forever of his love and support.
With no suspects, no leads, and no easy answers, the hope of finding Eric's killer quickly begins to dwindle. Anyone who knew him finds it inconceivable that this loving dad, entrepreneur, and UFO scholar could be targeted for such a chilling execution.
With no immediate leads in the present, there's little hope of finding Eric Poltorak's killer in the future, until investigators decide to take one more look into the victim's past.
Home surveillance video captures the killer of Eric Poltorak, shot to death in his front yard on Halloween night 2012. A work colleague thinks Eric's murder is connected to a violent home invasion 1 year previous, and Eric's agreement to testify against his attacker in court.
Michael Thomas, the person behind the home invasion, knows Eric's face and address and definitely has a motive to kill him. But Michael is in a prison cell when Eric is murdered. He's cleared of any suspicion.
Back to square one, investigators search through every aspect of Eric's life.
Authorities delve into Eric's costume business. They don't find any leads in the cosplay world, except to learn Eric also sells sexy animal costumes at goth S&M clubs. Unfortunately, no further leads pan out.
Detectives are left with an uncertainty of where this case will go, along with the possibility of justice not being served. Authorities look into Eric's role in the bizarre world of UFOs and space aliens. Detectives accept the possibility that people who uncover certain truths about our existence may be covering up information behind Eric's murder.
UFO phenomena is mysterious, outside the normal boundaries of logic, journalism, and science, and there are some strange people who believe in this stuff, but none that seem to want to harm Eric.
Over and over again, police find that Eric has no enemies, he has a lot of friends, and fans who adore him. The only lead authorities can turn up is the home invasion 1 year previous.
The home invasion continues to be the main lead for detectives as they try to piece together who could be the real suspect.
When every road points back to the same destination, it has to lead somewhere, right?
Police believe it is far too great of a coincidence that Poltorak is the target of a violent home invasion, and less than 1 year later, he is executed.
Eric stays out of trouble. He's cautious. He's not involved in anything dangerous or criminal, so 2 attacks in less than a year just seems too coincidental.
Michael Thomas, the man awaiting trial for beating and robbing Eric, is taken from his cell and brought in for questioning.
From the start, Michael Thomas shows himself as violent, ruthless, and not as smart as he thinks he is.
When Michael Thomas and a cohort discover that Eric Poltorak sells costume jewelry and cosplay costumes out of his Beverly Grove home, they mistakenly believe the rings and necklaces he sells are made with real gems.
This is why investigators believe Thomas and his accomplice went to Eric's home that night.
Eric was targeted for costume jewelry.
Thomas thinks he's gonna walk in there and walk out with a fortune in jewels. When they find out they're not, they're angry and forced to scramble.
They steal other valuables, but it's not a great haul. In the melee, Thomas leaves his fingerprints behind, leading police right to him.
That has to anger him a little bit. Michael is expecting this robbery to be this huge payday, but instead, it's really just an embarrassment.
But was Michael Thomas embarrassed enough to commit murder?
Michael Thomas sits in jail awaiting his pre-trial hearing, the one Eric Poltorak is slated to testify at. But after Eric's murder, Michael's situation is vastly different now.
There's no Eric on the stand to ID him. Coincidence? It's looking like it's anything but.
Without the key witness, the home invasion case against Michael Thomas will weaken significantly. It's going to be much easier now for him to walk free.
Suddenly, all eyes are on Michael Thomas, the only person with a motive.
Thomas is already on felony probation when the home invasion occurs. He has prior convictions for evading police, drug possession, threatening behavior, and violence.
And he distinguishes himself even further in prison.
Thomas seems to fear nothing. He acts like he's above the law. While he's in prison, he threatens Culver City police officers.
He even obtains a homemade weapon and shanks a fellow prisoner he doesn't like. So what might he do to prevent a citizen from testifying against him?
Authorities pull all details regarding Michael Thomas in prison, including the list of people who come to visit him.
Detectives are looking for anyone that might stand out, maybe an associate of some sort.
Thomas's visitors are primarily a mix of friends and family.
Michael's 20-year-old niece, Jessica Thomas, has recently moved to LA, and she visits him in prison several times. She loves her uncle and looks up to him, even if he's in prison. Alan Edward Williams, 23, is also in contact with Thomas. Yvonne DeCarlos Keith is in her mid-40s and the girlfriend of Michael Thomas when Eric Poltorak is murdered.
She's no stranger to the law, having previously been convicted herself of robbery.
Yvonne Keith meets Michael Thomas in a recovery program. Thomas is a very strong personality, and Keith quickly finds herself in love and under a very powerful influence.
Could love be the motive in Eric's murder? Not love for Eric Poltorak, but for Michael Thomas?
Investigators look into how close Thomas is to the people who visited him, and they monitor his phone calls out of the prison.
Police don't need a warrant to monitor phone calls made within a correctional facility.
At the LA County Jail, all of the non-contact area phones generate recordings filed by an inmate.
In some of Michael Thomas's phone calls and visits, certain words and phrases are skipped, which leads investigators to consider Michael Thomas might be a co-conspirator.
There's something fishy about these calls and visits, and there's one call in particular that raises alarm bells.
Detectives discover a recorded conversation between Alan Williams, Yvonne Keith, and Michael Thomas.
Thomas's friend Alan Edward Williams is a giant of a man, weighing over 300 pounds. Williams' nickname is the Beast.
On September 2nd, 2012, Thomas asks Alan Williams, "You about ready to put in some work?" Williams responds, "Yeah, what's up?"
The motive was to prevent him from testifying. The home invasion trial was going to take place very soon, and Michael Thomas did not want him to go forward on the stand.
The plan is set in motion by mastermind Michael Thomas, all from behind bars. He seems to have some very loyal accomplices.
These accomplices come from various areas of Michael Thomas's life. Along with Keith and Williams is Jessica Thomas. She moves in with her uncle, Michael Thomas, after her mother passes away.
It's discovered Alan and Jessica are dating, and police take an interest in her. In another call, Michael Thomas is recorded saying, "If the person doesn't come, if the person's not there, then it goes away."
Although he speaks in code, to police, Michael Thomas's message is plain as day.
The accused in the robbery orchestrated this hit from jail to silence Eric at the time.
Less than a week before 42-year-old Eric Poltorak's murder, Michael Thomas gives Yvonne Keith some very pointed advice.
Michael Thomas is her lifeline and protector when she's vulnerable. Jessica has been made to feel that she owes her uncle any favors. He tells his girlfriend, "You have the right to remain silent from the cradle to the grave." Simple. That's under any and all circumstances.
On November 1st, the day after the murder, Michael Thomas calls Yvonne Keith. She sounds relieved and happy, assuring Thomas that everything is wonderful and everything is gravy.
Keith tries to tell Thomas more, but he cuts her off quickly, saying, "That's enough, that's enough."
3 days after the murder, Thomas is visited by all the conspirators, one at a time. With Alan Thomas, both men laugh, and Thomas says, "We'll always remember the first hit ever."
Thomas asks his niece, Jessica Thomas, "Was you up close and personal? You confirmed it? Really? You did?" And by the response in the recording, it's implied that Jessica is nodding in the affirmative.
Jessica Thomas, Michael's niece, acted as the lookout, and Yvonne Keith, who was Michael's girlfriend, was also implicated.
Michael Thomas seems to have some loyal accomplices.
Alan Williams, the boyfriend of Thomas's niece, was the gunman.
Though investigators are confident they know what went down, there's no hard evidence and the perpetrators are speaking in code. Or are they?
Police realize that at times there are strange pauses in the conversation. They think Michael Thomas and his visitors are holding up notes to each other to avoid being recorded.
Detectives ask prison security to watch out for any garbage generated during Michael Thomas's visit. And sure enough, one man's trash becomes investigators' treasure.
The notes are definitely the evidence investigators needed.
During one visit with Michael Thomas, Yvonne Keith rips up a note and tosses it into the garbage can. It is retrieved by police. On it, she tells Thomas Poltorak's murder is on the news.
On Thomas's side, he also discards a note that is easily picked up. His contains firm instructions on how to deal with police. It's a damning piece of evidence.
The arrests were made following the analysis of phone recordings and visitor logs from the jail where Michael Thomas was held. These recordings revealed that incriminating conversations between Thomas and his accomplices had taken place.
The next day, Yvonne Keith, Alan Williams, and Jessica Thomas are all arrested.
Police obtain a search warrant for Michael Thomas's house that he shares with Keith, Thomas, and Williams. They find a notebook with all the same instructions Michael dictates.
Thomas oversees every single detail of this killing. The costumes, the timing, weapon, kind of ammunition, and what to say and not say to police. It's incredible how much power he has from behind bars.
Jessica Thomas is the first to be interrogated. Investigators know she likely has a lot to say and are tasked with trying to get her to talk.
Detectives are aware Jessica has specific instructions from suspect Michael Thomas not to talk to police. So they're not sure if they're going to be talking to a brick wall.
But almost immediately, Jessica breaks down and admits to being the lookout for the Eric Poltorak murder. But she is adamant she did not shoot him.
With her quick confession, investigators believe she can assist them in getting more information.
The goal is to use Jessica to get Yvonne to talk.
Even though Michael Thomas warned his co-conspirators to keep quiet from the cradle to the grave, the threat of life behind bars can easily persuade someone to flip.
Jessica Thomas and Yvonne Keith are put in the same cell. The cell is wired and the conversation is recorded. Together, both women talk and don't hold back.
Keith tells Jessica she regrets what she did and states she only did it for Michael Thomas. She says, "We're all trying to please your uncle because we all love him and don't want to see him there for the rest of his life, and we got caught."
Yvonne Keith tells Jessica she confessed to police.
Keith also says that Michael Thomas promises her a house and Williams a car if they get the deed done. Jessica reveals that Michael says he'll take her to Vegas for her birthday after the murder.
Houses, cars, trips, disturbing prizes for doing Michael Thomas's dirty work. Keith describes how Michael Thomas pressures her to case out Eric Poltorak's home and to carry out his plan to the letter.
Halloween is specifically chosen by Thomas to help them.
Keith buys the costumes for Jessica and Williams to wear and instructs the duo to burn them after the murder. Yvonne Keith enlists her sisters to rent a car to be used in the murder.
Jessica tells Yvonne Keith that Williams drinks half a bottle of alcohol and is drunk, and suspects if he had stayed sober, he would not have shot Poltorak.
Thomas clearly manipulates these women to help him out of jail.
After Eric Poltorak is found murdered on his doorstep, state prisoner Michael Thomas is found to be the ringleader in planning the murder behind bars. In order to execute his plan, he enlists the help of Alan Williams, Jessica Thomas, and Yvonne Keith, who follow through with their orders.
After the killing, Alan and Jessica drive to the ocean and throw the shotgun in the water. According to Jessica, no one wants to kill Poltorak, but Michael badgers Yvonne Keith until she gives in.
The women discuss how they should have known better and would have never been a part of this except for Michael Thomas's control over them.
They fear for Alan Williams, who, despite being the shooter, will pay the hardest in punishment.
The women have both made confessions, and they've pointed to the gunman as the third.
But police want to be sure to dot their I's and cross their T's in order to prosecute everyone involved. So they set their eyes on their new target. After Jessica Thomas flips for authorities and is placed in a cell with Yvonne Keith in order to have her confess on tape of being a part of Eric Poltorak's murder, authorities are also led to Alan Williams as the shooter. Alan Williams is placed in a cell with a confidential informant. And it doesn't take long for him to talk.
Alan Williams can't seem to keep his mouth shut. He goes into great detail to his new buddy. The biggest difference in his jailhouse confession? He doesn't have the same tone of regret as the two women.
Interestingly, Alan Williams is not Michael Thomas's first choice for triggerman.
Thomas tries to hire Marco Menendez, who goes by the nickname Psycho, to kill Poltorak. Menendez decides he wants no part of the scheme and disappears. Alan Williams then steps forward and offers to help Thomas with the killing.
That deal cost Eric his life.
It's a mistake that will change the course of his entire life.
Alan Williams describes to his cellmate how he carried out a hit for a homie on Halloween. He mentions Eric was robbed by his homeboy, and he admits to throwing the murder weapon into the ocean afterwards.
Thanks to the loose lips of Yvonne Keith, Jessica Thomas, and Alan Williams, all three are charged with conspiracy to commit murder. But police soon realize one of them might not be quite done talking.
Jessica Thomas is only 20 years old with no criminal record. She doesn't want to spend the rest of her life behind bars for something she was pushed into doing.
Jessica has a conundrum.
Although agreeing to keep quiet if ever caught, co-conspirator Jessica Thomas decides to testify against her uncle, Michael Thomas. The trial gets underway in the fall of 2016. Jessica Thomas pleads guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for leniency. She is eligible for parole in 2025.
Jessica will never be the same. And to think it all has to do with her own uncle who is supposed to protect her.
It's a very different story for the other members of this gang of killers.
Michael Thomas's girlfriend, Yvonne Keith, testifies at trial in her own defense in front of a 6-man, 6-woman jury.
Yvonne admits that she's no angel. She has a previous conviction for robbery, and in the fall of 2011, she's at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yvonne Keith reveals that she's in the getaway car outside Eric's house when Michael Thomas and another man carry out their armed robbery. This makes her an accessory to the original home invasion that changed Eric's life.
When Thomas is arrested, he relentlessly calls his girlfriend Yvonne, telling her she has to get him out of prison. And the way to do that is by having Eric Poltorak killed.
Yvonne Keith knows that Thomas is capable of turning her in. She also knows that if she doesn't do as he asks, he will hurt her in the first chance he gets.
Her fear gets the better of her, and she enlists friends and family to kill Eric Poltorak.
Defense calls an expert witness who testifies that Yvonne Keith suffers from intimate partner violence, also known as battered women syndrome.
Jurors are informed on intimate partner battering, and they hear Keith's further testimony that he has also been verbally abused by her father and her previous husband.
When Yvonne Keith meets Michael Thomas in recovery, she falls into the same pattern of abuse, in the very place she goes to escape it.
While the jury might have sympathy for Yvonne's history being abused, it doesn't outweigh the fact that she was also the getaway driver for the robbery against Eric and his murder.
Alan Williams has sealed his fate already, with a pretrial confession to a confidential informant from his prison cell.
Williams leaves no doubt. He willingly takes the shotgun, executes Eric Poltorak, and disposes of the weapon in the ocean, which is later recovered by police.
With all the evidence in order, the prosecution is ready for trial, but the defense counsel has other plans.
Williams' lawyer attempts an elaborate scheme to make it seem as though his client is unfit to stand trial.
His IQ tests are so low that they are consistent with a person suffering end-stage dementia, but nobody buys it, and Alan Williams is forced to stand trial.
Alan Williams and Yvonne Keith were found guilty of murder and received life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Lying in wait means hiding, waiting to attack or causing injury by surprise. It implies premeditation, so it can be considered an aggravating circumstance.
Yvonne Keith and Alan Williams are both sentenced to life in prison without parole. Williams gets an additional 25 years to life for using a firearm in the commission of the offense, and Keith will serve an additional 5 years for having a prior similar conviction on his record.
They'll never get out of prison.
Jessica Thomas pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and is eligible for parole in 2025.
Michael Thomas orchestrated the whole thing from behind bars and was not at the scene when Eric was shot to death, but he's still found responsible for the killing.
In September 2016, a jury finds Michael Thomas to be the architect of Eric Poltorak's Halloween 2012 murder and find him guilty. The jury recommends the death penalty rather than life in prison, arguing Thomas is the kind of person who warrants death.
And after all this time, Michael Thomas decides he's done trying to pull the strings in his favor. He tells the court he's not interested in appealing the death sentence and he wants to go to sleep.
Defense attorneys are obligated to argue zealously for their client. In this case, they believe that a child development expert and gang expert will establish mitigating circumstances. But because Thomas wants to die, the judge overrules the defense.
Michael Thomas was found guilty and recommended for the death penalty, currently on death row in California.
With a senseless murder at the center of it all, the lives of several other people are changed forever as they find themselves behind bars for the murder of Eric Poltorak. And controlling them from prison, it's only Michael Thomas who winds up determining his own fate as he's granted a death sentence.
Eric is an innocent citizen with a uniquely interesting life when he's unnecessarily pulled into a vicious undertow of crime. He has the moral courage to testify against his attackers.
Tragically, he gets no witness protection and becomes like a lamb to the wolves.
His brother Barry expressed deep sorrow over Eric not being able to witness his daughter growing up and participating in significant life events like high school graduation and college and any other sort of event that would take place in their life.
Eric proves to be a courageous individual, and even though his death is a senseless tragedy, his excitement for life lives on through his family and friends. Like the alien and UFO theories Eric Poltorak so steadfastly believed in, the truth was out there, and it led to Eric's killers being incarcerated for the rest of their lives.